Today we are diving deep into the dark and twisted world of villains. We will be exploring why having a great villain is essential to any narrative. But that's not all. This is the beginning of an epic journey where we will be ranking every major villain in the Tower of God series based on 3 crucial criteria: their intention or motivation, how much of a threat they pose, and of course how entertaining they are. We will look into every major villain in Tower of God and rank them in our ultimate tier list. I'll be examining their motivations, their impact on the story and where they stand in the grand scheme of the tower. And what better way to start this video series than by dissecting one of the most intriguing antagonists in Tower of God, Hal Joe. So, if you're as excited as I am to see where these villains rank, make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. Now, here's the thing, villains are the lifeblood of any good story, and that's where Hal Joe comes in. Hal Joe is one of the standout villains from the Tower of God series. He is introduced during the Floor of Death arc, and man, does he leave an impression. But what is it that makes Hal Joe so special? Let's break it down. Hal Joe was a hull repairman on the 33rd floor, having served the South City by creating, maintaining and redirecting the holes at the edge of the habitable part of the Floor of Death. These holes are special organs designed to pull Shinsu from outside in order to make the intersection habitable. Hal Joe came to know everything about the holes after working on them for many years. Eventually, the then ruler of the South City, Grand Zahard, began to trust Hal Joe and appointed him top hole master. At some point, Hal Joe encountered Jurek Magino while working on the hole system. The two talked for a while, as Hal Joe was happy to finally meet someone from outside the Floor of Death, and Jurek was happy to have someone he could talk to about his failed love life. Hal Joe told Jurek about his dream of getting everyone out of the Floor of Death, and this resonated with Jurek. Jurek was fascinated by Joe's grand dream and gave him a powerful monster, the Red Frisser, in order to fulfill that dream. Hal Joe returned to South City, speaking of a plan to use the holes to share power with everyone on the Floor of Death, and eventually use the soul steering ladle to attempt to escape the Floor of Death. Grand Zahard disapproved of that plan because he believed it was the destiny of those on the Floor of Death to one day receive a savior from the outside, one who would forgive their past sins and release them from the floor. Zahard tried to imprison Hal Joe, but thanks to his new powers, he overwhelmed Zahard's minions. Some of Grand Zahard's servants joined Hal Joe and they tried to take over the South City peacefully. Zahard branded Joe a traitor and made the youngest member of the Grant family his new heir. An idea was then proposed, to have a vote decide the next ruler. Joe was confident that he would win, since he promised equal power and freedom to everyone. But to his dismay, Hal Joe lost that vote, and something changed in him. The Red Frisser used that state of despair to pursue Joe to become one with it, granting him some of the abilities of an administrator on the Floor of Death. Disappointed that others preferred to stay on the Floor of Death over freedom, he staged a coup to take over South City by force. Zahard pretended to break the ladle so that Joe couldn't use it to give back the souls to the inhabitants of the floor. He later tried to take over the North City, but was stopped by Grand Zahard's eyes, which could predict the future, and thanks to the aid of Garam Zahard, they were able to push back his assault. He later convinced David Hockney and Martha to find the Thorn fragments left behind by Enryu, with the false promise of finding a way for Hockney to leave the Floor of Death. When Hockney refused to find the rest of the fragments after finding one for him, Joe tore out Hockney's eyes in a fit of rage and tried to use them to find the Thorn himself, having believed that Hockney's eyes possessed special powers. He later tortured a Red Witch who was on a pilgrimage through the floor in an attempt to force her to find the fragments for him, unaware that Guide's powers don't work on the Floor of Death, and causing her to die an excruciating death. In terms of strength, it almost feels like Hal Joe is cheating, even without being a ranker. Hal Joe's powers and abilities, while on the Floor of Death, easily make him one of the strongest beings we have seen in the series. Even high rankers and princesses of Zahard could not defeat him. What makes Hal Joe such a formidable threat is the power he wields, specifically the Red Frisser. This isn't just some ordinary weapon or skill. The Red Frisser grants Joe unparalleled control over Shinsu, the very life force of the tower. It allows him to manipulate Shinsu to a degree that would make even the most seasoned high rankers tremble. For example, his zero area technique allows him to lower the Shinsu density so that other people are no longer able to use Shinsu manipulation techniques. But that's not all. The Red Freezer also enhances Joe's physical capabilities to an insane level. His strength, speed and durability are all off the charts. In a direct confrontation, very few could hope to stand against him. What makes Hell Joe even more dangerous isn't just his raw power, but his mindset. This is a man who started with noble intentions. He wanted to liberate the floor of death, to bring hope to its cursed inhabitants. But after absorbing the Red Freezer, those intentions were corrupted. His desperation turned into madness. Joe became obsessed with control. He saw himself as the only one who could change the fate of the floor of death. And he was willing to go to any lengths to maintain his power. His paranoia grew, leading him to rule with an iron fist, crushing any opposition, and that's what makes him truly terrifying. He's a man on the edge, driven by a twisted sense of purpose, and those kinds of villains are the most unpredictable. And this unpredictability is what makes Hell Joe so entertaining. Hell Joe is this tyrant that rules over the South City with an iron fist, and yet our first introduction to him is how he tells his servants to not disturb him, as he has important matters to take care of. What important matters, you might ask? Well, simple. He had to finish reading his comic, something we can probably all relate to. This guy is a walking, talking bundle of chaos. You never know what he's going to do next, and that keeps you on the edge of your seat. And let's not forget Hell Joe's flair for the dramatic. This guy doesn't just do things, he performs them. Whether he is delivering grandiose speeches to his subordinates or dramatically showcasing his power, Hell Joe is always putting on a show. Watching Hell Joe go all out is like watching a fireworks show. Explosive, unpredictable and just plain awesome. He's not just powerful, he's creatively powerful. The way he uses his abilities to manipulate the environment, control others and assert his dominance is just fun to watch. Hell Joe's story is a tragic one. He starts out as a well-meaning individual, someone who genuinely wants to improve the lives of those suffering on the floor of death. But as is often the case with great villains, his noble intentions are twisted by the immense power given to him by Jurek Magino through the Red Freezer. This power doesn't just corrupt him, it completely consumes him. His transformation from a hopeful savior to the ruthless tyrant is what makes him so compelling. He is not just evil for the sake of being evil, he is a character driven by desperation, pain and ultimately by the fear of being powerless again. This is where we see the real tragedy of Hell Joe. He's a character who wanted to do good, but was led astray by the very power he thought would be his salvation. His story is a dark reminder of how even the best intentions can lead to monstrous outcomes. But what elevates Hell Joe as a villain is his complexity. He is not a one-dimensional antagonist. He is cunning, manipulative and deeply flawed. But he is also relatable. We can understand his fear, his anger and even his desire to change his fate. This relatability is key to making him a great villain. Great villains, the ones we remember long after the story ends, are those who resonate with us on some level. Hell Joe's desperation and his tragic fall from grace make him someone we can sympathize with, even as we root for his defeat. Now, let's talk about his impact on the story. Hell Joe isn't just there to be a roadblock for Barm and his friends. He's a major force that shapes the entire story arc. His reign of terror on the floor of death doesn't just create tension, it forces the protagonists to confront their own fears and limitations. This makes the stakes incredibly high and it pushes our heroes to grow. A good villain does more than just oppose the hero, they bring out the best in them by challenging everything they stand for. To wrap it all up, a good villain like Hell Joe is crucial for making a story truly engaging. He is complex, relatable and has a profound impact on the narrative. Hell Joe isn't just a foe to be vanquished. He is a mirror reflecting the dark sides of ambition and power, and that's what makes him such a memorable villain and why I chose him as my first entry in this new video series, where I will put him close to the top at a very high A tier. But what do you think? Do you agree with my take on Hell Joe? What do you think makes a great villain? And which Tower of God antagonist are you most excited to see me rank? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more. Also check some of my other content out as well. I'm Dennis and as always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you again. Bye!